Good morning, African Leadership Academy. My name is Ousseynou Diome, and I'm from Senegal. Today, for this great and honorable occasion, I would like you to enable me to share my story with you. I was born in 1991 in Dakar, where I lived with my mother, my brother, and my cousin. My mother believed that if we remain in Dakar, we would lose out any culture, especially our tradition and language. So, in 1997, my cousin and I were sent to our grandmother's village, Lamassas, in the central Senegal. The life in the village is very hard. Firstly, there is no running water in the homes. Every day, the women fetch water from 2 kilometers away. Also, the main activity is agriculture. However, there are no machines in the village. We had to use our hands. I started primary school there. The school had only one teacher, and in the first year, there were over 70 students. For the first years, we did not have a classroom. Therefore, we learned in a shed built by farmers. By the 6 years, there were only 20 students, as most left the school, either because lack of opportunity or to get married. During my time in the village, I was not only a student, but I was also a farmer, helping my grandmother and my uncle. Therefore, when I came back home after school, I went to lands instead of focusing on my studies. The only time I had to study was at night, and there was no electricity at the village, so I had to use candles. After 6 years of studies, we both succeeded in our exam to enter secondary school. I succeeded because of my ambition and my passion. It was very difficult, but when I got up, I could tell myself that one day or another, I would have the opportunity to change the life in the village. I knew that God is not nasty. If you are in a difficult situation and you try, He will help you. It was because of that difficulty that I was always dreaming that one day I would have the opportunity to help the villagers, especially youths and women whose their lives was very hard. Despite all these difficulties, I was the first in my exam from my region, including other students who had more opportunities. However, the village did not have a secondary school. This did not impact my cousin, as unfortunately, she had been given to marriage at the age of 17, and as a result, she left the school. My mother decided it was time for me to come back to Dakar, but my grandmother disagreed. So I decided to go in a secondary school near to the village so that every Sunday I could go back to visit my grandmother in the village. The level of education in my secondary school was very high, so it was my first time to attending a good school. In 2004, during one of our daily breaks, my friends and I decided to form an association that would gather all students from surrounding villages. The mission of that association was to analyze problems that were happening in the village in order to make a monthly report to give to the Minister of Women and Families, Madame Aydamboj. Madame Boj found the reports helpful because they enabled her to know exactly what was happening in the village so that she was able to help them. Last year, before I came here in African Leadership Academy, with her help, we set up the first machine that would help women to break down the grain of maize instead of having to use their hands. In 2007, I received my BFM, my secondary school certification, and therefore was able to go to high school. I was again the first in my exam from my region. I went to high school in the same town, and it was there that I heard from the dean of our school about African Leadership Academy. After listening to his explanation about the mission of ALA, I was so excited because I found it was helpful. But my grandmother was so proud, but she always didn't want me to come to Saga Africa. My mother also was hesitant, but fortunately, my uncle, and some of her friends eventually convinced her, and I was allowed to come. But the hardest challenge was to find papers. I had my birth certificate, but the problem was, in Senegal. If you are less than 17, you are not allowed to get a passport unless you have the permission from your father. My parents divorced when I was a baby, and last time I spoke to my father, I was 4. As my mom's signature was not enough, it was Mrs. Binta who finally got the required paper after we had an exceptional visit at the president's house. In September 2008, I joined the community of LA. LA has been an opportunity for me to improve myself, but also to know exactly what Africa is. Today, I want to say congratulations to African Leadership Academy for overcoming the barrier of language. Because if you remember, 5 months ago, making a correct sentence in English for the Francophone students was a huge challenge, especially myself. But now, you can notice yourself that the situation has been improved. I think we all agree that Africa today is divided into 2 worlds, the Francophone and the Anglophone. And to create the African united we all want, making a connection between these 2 worlds is necessary. And that connection can't be made without tackling the barrier of languages. Thus, I'm happy to be here at LA. I will never forget my life in the village. It taught me the importance of knowing my tradition, but also helped me to know exactly how someone else in a difficult situation is feeling. Dear students, I will conclude to remember you that one engaged person can change the world. In African Leadership Academy, we are 97 students engaged, supported by an engaged administration. Therefore, we must believe that African change is in our hands. Thank you.